Hello, welcome to the self-learning platform by Dr. Sushma Singh. Today we are going to start Unit 1, Our Settlers Society and Staples Economy. And we start with topic rivalry between French and English settlers. While the English colonies were growing rapidly along the Atlantic seaboard, French were extending deep into the heart of North America. It was also the time when France and England were competing and fighting for colonies elsewhere in the world. Soon, this struggle became active in North America also. A military manifestation of this struggle came in the shape of Queen Anne's War in 1702. This led to the capture of Port Royal by the English in 1710. The Treaty of Utrecht re-established peace in 1713. The treaty required France to surrender the Hudson Bay Territory, Newfoundland, and Acadia. France was permitted to keep Cape Breton Island as well her inland colonies. To protect its territories and also the entrance to the St. Lawrence River, France erected the powerful fortress of Louisburg on Cape Breton Island. In 1745, the army of New Englanders attacked this fortress of Louisburg and captured the same. The fortress was returned to France by the Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle, signed in 1748. But to counterbalance the threat from Louisburg, England set up an Atlantic bastion of its own. In 1760, the British finally conquered the French colony known as New France. Also in the Seven Years' War, 1756 to 1762 in Europe, and the battle on the plains of Abraham in 1759, the British had defeated the French. As a result, the Treaty of Paris was signed in 1763 and the British became the new masters of New France. This French colony became the English colony of Quebec. The title to Nova Scotia, another former French colony, was also formally renounced by the Treaty of Paris, although it had come under the British rule much earlier. Now let us study about the British settlers' colony. With the fall of the Quebec City, the North American colonies of the region became a colony under Britain. The King of Britain appointed a Governor General to rule Canada on his behalf. He was assisted by a council and an assembly. As far as French speaking inhabitants were concerned, their aim now was to retain their traditions, languages, and culture. British passed the Quebec Act 1774 and which granted official recognition to French civil laws and guaranteed religious and linguistic freedoms. With the attainment of independence by the United States of America in 1776, a large number of English speaking colonists called Loyalists because they wished to remain faithful to the British Empire sought refuge in Canada. This migration was encouraged by the royal authority as it had expected that it would minimize the concentration of the French speaking population in Quebec. But the English speaking population flocked to the particular region in Quebec. Ultimately, Quebec in 1791 was divided into English speaking Upper Canada, Ontario, and French speaking Lower Canada, Quebec. Both were granted their own representative governing institutions. Even this system did not remedy the situation. In Lower Canada, the British dominated the council, whereas the French were a majority in the assembly. This resulted in an uneasy deadlock between the two chambers and the irrespective executive and representative assembly. The racial and religious controversy, French versus English, became unmanageable. In Upper Canada, too, things were not running smooth. Rebellions in 1837 and 1838 prompted the British to join the two colonies, forming the United Province of Canada. In 1848, the joint colony was granted responsible government as except in matters of foreign affairs. Canada in due course gained further measures of autonomy but remained part of the British Empire. Initially, the British adopted the assimilation policy, namely to eliminate anything French language, culture, civil law, bureaucracy, convert French Catholicism to English Protestant persuasion, and encouraged massive British migration to Canada. This policy met with a strong resistance from the French. At the same time, the American Revolution was in high gear. American revolutionists sought French collaboration to overthrow the British. Faced with these circumstances, the British changed the policy to inclusion policy, that is, to allow the existence of French culture, language, and so forth. This system worked about 2 decades. Thereafter, new problems emerged which finally necessitated the union of all the North American colonies. Now, the point of discussion is birth of new country Canada. Britain's North American colonies, Canada, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, and Newfoundland, were growing independently. However, the changes that took place in 1860s in the American and European countries affected the British North American colonies also. This led to a process of state building in Canada. As elsewhere, the most important change that took place, according to Gareth Stevenson, was the emergence of an external threat to the security of British North America. The threat, of course, came from the United States Britain relations. This exposed Canada to the threat of an American invasion in the event of war. A section of politicians felt a union of the British colonies was the only way to fend off eventual annexation. Consequently, in September 1864, representatives of the British North American colonies met at Charlottetown in Prince Edward Island and agreed to principle to work for the union of the province. 5 weeks later, at Quebec, they drew up a detailed scheme of government known as the Quebec Resolution. This led to the beginning of the process for the formation of a Dominion of Canada through a constitution that came to be known as British North American Act 1867 BNA Act. Thus on July 1st, 1867 came into being the Dominion of Canada consisting of four provinces: Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia. It was a federal system and a primarily democracy called the Confederation of Canada, as the government of Canada did not want the American to claim the land in the West. They asked for the rights to Rupert's Land. Hudson Bay Company surrendered its rights in exchange for some land and money. In 1870, the Queen granted this land to Canada for future settlement. In 1867, Canada was granted the Dominion status. It was only in 1931 that Canada became a totally free country. The topic which we are going to discuss now is westward expansion. Soon after Confederation, Canada expanded into Northwest Rupert's Land, an area extending south and west for thousands of kilometers from Hudson Bay, was purchased by Canada from the Hudson's Bay Company, which had been granted the vast territory by King Charles of England in 1670. The westward expansion did not happen without stress. In 1869, Louis repelled an uprising of the Métis in an attempt to defeat their ancestral rights to the land. A com- compromise was reached in 1870 and a new province, Manitoba, was carved from the Rupert's Land. British Columbia, already a crown colony since 1858, decided to join the Dominion in 1871 on the promise of a rail link with the rest of the country. Prince Edward Island followed suit in 1873. In 1898, the Northern Territory of Yukon was officially established to ensure the Canadian jurisdiction over that area during the Klondike Gold Rush. In 1905, two new provinces were carved from Rupert's Land. Alberta and Saskatchewan, the residual land became the Northwest Territories. Newfoundland preferred to remain a British colony until 1949, when it became Canada's 10th province. Canada, as such, is now made up of 10 constituent units called the provinces and 3 territories. It is an independent liberal democracy, a multicultural society, and a federal polity. Now let us move toward the point the plural society. The above mentioned evaluation of the Canadian state and the society makes it clear that cultural diversity has characterized Canada since its earliest history. There were only a few areas of Canada where the settlement patterns over the centuries were able to establish and maintain a cohesive and stable population drawn from a single group. While earlier diversity consisted primarily of aboriginals, anglophones, and francophones, during last century the diversity had grown beyond initial expectations, both from migration and natural increases. The overtaking of the founding peoples came in three waves of migration: one 1840 to 1913 from Western, Northern, and Eastern Europe, settling mostly west to the Quebec. The second from 1946 to 1975 from Southern Europe, settling mostly in Ontario. And the third from 1970 to the present, in which a majority of migrants hail from the Caribbean islands, Latin America, Eastern Asia, and Southern Asia, and settling mostly in Ontario. In view of the above, Canada has declared itself a bilingual and multicultural society. Canada has two official languages: English, the mother tongue of about 59% of the Canadians, and French, the first language of 23% of the population. About 80% have either more than one mother tongue or a mother tongue other than English or French. The Official Language Act makes French and English the official languages of Canada and provides for special measures aimed at enhancing the vitality and supporting the development of English and French minority communities. The majority of the Francophone not only live in Quebec but also in every province. New Brunswick's large Acadian population prompted it to become officially bilingual. According to Canadian statistics, more than four-fifths of Canadians are Christians, with Catholic accounting for about 47% and Protestants about 36%. Other religions include Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, Sikhism, and Buddhism. Some 12.5% more than any single denomination except Roman Catholic have no religious affiliation at all. Canada is a Christian majority nation, but it is not a Christian country. Canada's policy of multiculturalism not only allows various religions, languages, and cultures to exist, but provides assistance and support for their preservation and development. You will read more about this in a separate unit. And now we wind up today's lecture. Thank you so much for your attention.